Welcome, everybody. We are live as usual. Hit the subscribe button, it's right there in front of you. Hit the like button, it's right there in front of you. And don't forget to comment tonight. The comments are open. And by all means, share this, share this, share this. Share it especially with your Penn State friends tonight. Uh, I have I have with me. You guys might remember him from the Albany preview show we did. Rodger Wyland, the play-by-play. It's play-by-play, right, of
That's
the
right.
Albany team.
Yeah.
Okay,
You're right.
I just want to make sure. Sometimes I got the color and the play-by-play mixed up. And so, Roger's here because he's a big Penn State fan and said that he wouldn't mind being invited on during the Penn State week. So we invited him back. And so he's here tonight. And the first thing I want to do is, could you bring us up to date on the Albany team since they last played Iowa? I
Yeah.
did look up that things weren't going well. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. It has not. The win-loss record is not what they were hoping for. Only have one win going into their homecoming game against Rhode Island this weekend. Uh, Tough loss on the road at Delaware State. A couple games they had penciled in as wins. They lost Delaware State, and then had a really bad loss at home against New Haven. They're making the transition from D2 to D1. Honestly, the best game of the year that we've played and felt like we actually were respectable was the first game of the year at Iowa. We've had some wins that were penciled in as wins that are losses. We've had 11 players suffer season-ending injuries. We've had injuries at the quarterback spot, and it's been kind of a mess. We'll see what happens. They're 0-2 in the CAA conference, and Rhode Island is the homecoming game. They're 3-0 in the conference. They're the top team in the conference. The game is at Casey Stadium, which is here in Albany this weekend. So they are. They have been struggling. Let's see if they can dig out of this hole a little bit and get a win this weekend.
Oh, okay, great. Good. Thank you for the update. And honestly, that was probably our worst game of the year, even though we won it.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And by the way, I want to thank everybody in Iowa for the hospitality. The how friendly everybody was from the time we touched down until after the game was over. Couldn't have been the accommodations couldn't have been better. Everybody in the sports information department and your broadcasters were great. We had an issue radio side we were missing a piece of equipment, and they took care of us on that, and we were able to get our broadcast on the air smoothly. So thank everyone out there for the hospitality and how you treated the U Albany team when they landed.
Perfect. I'm glad to hear that they treated you guys really well, and they do most of the time. I'm not sure what kind of a welcome Penn State gets, though. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, a big
Um,
rivalry game, and I would think you have them kind of where you want them, or maybe not. It really all depends. But I think the firing of James Franklin this week has been the hot topic in college football.
no doubt about it. I will tell you, before he got fired on Sunday, I felt really good about this Penn State game. I'm not so sure now because I think these guys, it sounds like I've been listening to some Penn State podcast all week. It sounds like they've gone from down in the dumps to very optimistic, the players, and the players are getting a little step back in their, or a little pep back in their steps from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I mean, this is a really good football team. I mean, the reason that these fans are so wound up this year is because in the preseason, this was a team that everyone thought, okay, this is the year James Franklin wins a national title. They're that good. They brought a lot of people back from last year. They paid a lot of people handsomely to stay around and not go to the portal. They had their quarterback in Drew Aller, who wanted to redeem himself from what happened last year in the Notre Dame game and the bad pass he made. And this was all set up. The first 3 games of the year were total cupcakes, just a horrible first 3-game schedule. But then the big one was against Oregon. and they lose that in double overtime, which is another, James Franklin cannot beat these top ranked teams. I don't know what the win-loss record is, like 4-21, something ridiculous. But you know what? Oregon's really good. Another shaky pass in double overtime by Drew Aller. Maybe you can live with that. Now you're going to move on with the rest of the season. And then you lose, you're a 25-point favorite at UCLA and you get beat. That was like, are you kidding me? And then you come home and lose again to Northwestern. You were a 3-touchdown favorite in that game. So I know that people at Beaver Stadium were walking into that Northwestern games with bags over their head. So they were wound up about the way this season has gone after the loss to Oregon. So the timing of it surprised me. I thought, listen, Franklin, to the fans, that the fans have wanted James Franklin out for a long time. This isn't anything new. The fans in State College, Penn State fans, they've had enough of James Franklin. So I'm not surprised that he would eventually get fired when this season is over if it didn't turn out to be a national championship season or darn close to it. But when they lost those 2 games, everything changed with the athletic director. I still was surprised that it happened this soon. I really am.
Yeah. Honestly, if you would have had my bingo card 3 weeks ago, even after the Oregon game, I would not have seen this coming.
No.
I wouldn't have seen the 2 losses that came since Oregon. I mean, I'm not surprised that they lost to Oregon, but they had an equal chance to win that game. And I don't know how to say it except that gosh darn it, I picked Penn State and Clemson to be in the national title game.
Well,
and neither team is probably going to make the playoffs.
I mean, that's it. I hope Penn State wins enough games, Dean, to be bowl eligible and to actually, have a winning season and get to the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning of the week, the first podcast I looked at was on Monday, and one of the podcasters looked up the schedule for the rest of the year, and he said, "I think they go 0-9 to finish the year." Now, I don't see that coming because, as you said, this is a very, very very talented team, and even though they have a backup quarterback, he's very talented in his own right. And so.
Yeah,
I just pray that the Hawkeyes aren't overlooking this game at all.
Well, they shouldn't be, because Penn State is extremely talented. They're as talented as any team in the country. Now you lose your starting quarterback in Drew Aller. All bets are off with the backup QB. I have no clue how he's going to respond in the starter's role. He has a good resume. It looks like, obviously he was a backup at Penn State. They must think he's pretty good. And Terry Smith, I will say this. Terry Smith is the interim head coach for right now. And from what my sources tell me, and I've got a lot of sources in Penn State, where I went to school and grew up not far from State College in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and a lifelong Penn State fan, I can tell you my sources are telling me that they're going to give Terry Smith every opportunity to win this job. But he's going to have to win games. Going to have to go into Ohio State and get a victory, beat Indiana at home, not lose to Iowa on the road. He's going to have to win some games, but I think he's got enough talent on that team to do it. And I think the players really like Terry Smith. He's a highly regarded assistant coach in that program.
Yeah. Now the question I saw that last week's game they had 19 players out with injuries. Do you know this week how many of those players are getting back, and how many of the 19 are key players?
Yeah.
Besides Drew.
So from what I'm hearing, they are getting a few of those players back, and a couple of them are players that will be in key spots. They're not getting all of them back, but they are getting a couple of players on both sides of the ball that did miss that Northwestern game after suffering injuries at UCLA. They are getting them back this week. So from a Penn State standpoint, they did receive some good news on the injury front.
Okay. And for those who don't really know, do you know much about the running backs and the wide receivers? I know that they got 2 outstanding running backs.
Yeah,
they like to use a lot.
And they got a receiver from USC in the portal in the off season, and he's very good. He scored a touchdown in that Oregon game on a beautifully thrown ball by Drew Aller. So they upgraded their wide receivers. That was a position last year where they were not good. They felt like they needed to do a lot better at wide receiver, and they've upgraded the wide receiving core. So I think they're actually in pretty good shape at wide out. I just don't know about the quarterback, to be honest with you.
The well, the one wide out that they use, he played for Troy last year, and he torched Iowa for 3 touchdowns and 147 yards receiving. I'm just praying that he doesn't have that kind of nay against Iowa again, because he's basically going against the same secondary
Yeah, he
did last year.
I think Penn State is gonna, come in there in the right frame of mind. I think they've, quite frankly, been embarrassed and they lost their head coach, and I think they're going to play really hard for Terry Smith. I can see Penn State playing a big game on Saturday. I really do. Whether that produces a win or not, I don't know, but I think they're going to come out there and play well.
Yeah, and I saw that Terry Smith said that nobody will be questioning the heart and the work ethic and everything of this team. But he says, whether that's a win or not, I can't tell you. But he says nobody's going to be questioning them after this week, and that's what scares me, because this is a very, very talented team, and and I did in my picks this week. I did pick Iowa because I don't like to pick against Iowa. So I thought we have at least a 50-50 shot in this game. So I did pick Iowa to win, I think 24-12.
Okay.
And so
I'll go
we'll
again.
see.
I'll take the Nittany Lions to win this game, and kind of everyone step back and go, wow, they changed coaches. They fired James Franklin in a few games into the season, and Penn State responded. I have a funny feeling that's the direction this game is going. I may throw a few dollars down on that one. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah. And I think you might not be the only one.
Like
I said,
I do have an inside coach there, Greg Cattuso. I think I may have told you this when I was previewing the UAlbany game, but UAlbany had a new coach this year, and he's still interim. Jared Ambrose is interim head coach at the University of Albany, and he stepped in for Greg Cattuso, who left after 11 seasons to return to Penn State. He is the defensive analyst. He's 63 years old. He went to Penn State. He was on Joe Paterno's first national championship team back in 1982, a team that I covered when I was a reporter back in those days in my hometown in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And Greg, he's on the coaching staff. So as soon as I heard this news on Sunday that Franklin was out, I immediately text Greg to make sure he was okay, that he wasn't going to do his job, because sometimes, that happens. But he said that, Terry Smith, who Greg holds in high regard, was getting the position as interim, and there'll be no changes on the coaching staff. So Greg Cattuso, my good friend and former UAlbany head coach, he's safe for the rest of this season. But he said it was an emotional time. I said, were you in the room when Franklin addressed his team? And he said, yeah. He said they did allow Franklin to meet with his team after everybody knew he was going to be out. And he said, look, everyone's saying, don't feel sorry for Franklin because he's getting $49 million in a buyout walking out the door. But at the same time, there's the human element issue to this, where he has dumped his heart and soul into that program for 11 and a half years. And so to go in there and tell his team that he's out was not easy to do. And Greg said it was a very emotional goodbye from James Franklin.
Well, I bet, but I just don't understand. I mean, I realize that they've fallen on some hard times this year, and maybe the team wasn't playing for him. I don't know what the problem was. It could have been the 19 injuries, but how do you fire a coach who for the last 5 years has won at least 10 games?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Dean, he won 70% of his games at Penn State. I mean, his win-loss record is incredible, but if you go back and look at the games that he lost that were considered big time games against ranked opponents, that win loss percentage and record is really dismal. He didn't win enough of those games. And there were many years Penn State's going 10-2, and the two losses are to Ohio State and Michigan, almost year in, year out. And I'm telling you, the Penn State fans, and that the fans have something to say. They average about 108,000 fans a game at Beaver Stadium. They have really grown tired of that 10-2. Let's go to a nice bowl game, but we can never beat Ohio State and Michigan. That's been the narrative.
That's what, and I was just going to mention that most of the losses that they've had over those last several years have been Michigan and Ohio State. Did they ever beat Michigan? When even in the early days of Harbaugh.
Yeah, they have beaten Michigan, but it's been not many times, and Ohio State even worse. I mean, I don't know what the losing streak is to Ohio State, but it's up there. I mean, I was there in 2018 when they lost to Ohio State in a whiteout at Beaver Stadium, and Justin Fields was the quarterback of the Buckeyes, and that was a close game, but it was another loss in front of 110,000 fans. So
not a lot of people beat Ohio State. I mean, we got lucky in 2017 with a team that wasn't that talented and beat them, and we nicknamed that the woodshed game because we beat them like 57-21 or something like that.
Yeah, lopsided.
Yeah, but that's probably remains our only Ohio State victory. I can't even remember the last time before that we actually beat them.
Well, the disappointment was extremely high after the Oregon game. I mean, that was deflating. The build up to Oregon for Penn State, was from week one because they played nobody the first 3 weeks of the season. They played nobody. But you know what? Even those 3 weeks, Dean, the report card on the team was, yeah, they won, but Penn State didn't really play well. They didn't look great. They struggled against Villanova. They struggled against this team, all teams that they're supposed to be blowing out. And some of the scores were lopsided, but I heard from many Penn State writers who cover the team that wrote, Penn State just doesn't look great. Yep, they're winning these games, but they don't look great. But let's see what happens against Oregon. And then it was perfectly set up on that Saturday. It was a sold-out atmosphere. A whiteout at Beaver Stadium is one of the best atmospheres in all of college football. And they lose in double overtime.
Yeah, I was just going to say one of the other podcasts I listen to, it's one of the beat writers who covers them. It's a lady, and she said her gut feeling was if they beat Oregon, if they win that game, they're probably 6-0, and James Franklin still has a job.
No doubt about it. No question about it. That they beat Oregon, I can guarantee you that he still has the job. And I would have predicted even Saturday. I watched the whole game from home. This was a bye week in the U Albany schedule. Didn't have a game this week. I can sit home and watch Penn State. And my son was in town from Ithaca. He's a freshman playing college football at Ithaca. And we sat there, and I honestly thought this is going to be a 3 or 4 touchdown blowout by Penn State. They've had enough of this. The sting from Oregon, but even more so losing to UCLA. I mean, there were more Penn State fans at UCLA game than there were Bruins fans, and they lose there. And then just to watch what they did against Northwestern was really hard. Couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. But still surprised that they pulled the trigger on Franklin on Sunday. I was surprised.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were shocked. By the way, we know how the sting of losing to UCLA feels. I was at last year's game to watch us lose that game after we built a lead in that game. And then we lost it when our quarterback went down in that game. But yes, we understand very well. Losing to a team that you fully expected to win.
I got a question for you. How's Iowa playing right now? How's Iowa playing coming into this Penn State game? What kind of a season, in your opinion, has Iowa had since the opening weekend when I saw them, beat Albany?
Our only 2 losses are to Indiana, and frankly, I think we played better against Indiana than Oregon did, so maybe we have a chance in that game. We lost to Iowa State, who at the time was ranked, like at 14th or something like that. I believe Iowa State's, I don't know where they're ranked right now, but they've lost 2 straight games because their defense has been decimated with injuries since they last played us. And so we lost by, a total of 8 points between the 2 games. We've lost total. We won the rest of them. We didn't start looking good. We looked pretty good against I can't think of the non-conference game that we played right after Iowa State, but we looked pretty good against them because our quarterback, for 2 games, he didn't look good, and he started to get his act together. Then we came in our first Big Ten game. We beat Rutgers, and I think we beat by 10, like 38-28 or something like that, which Rutgers really, and going into the fourth quarter, was pretty much in control of that game, and we just took it over in the fourth. I didn't even get to watch that game. I had to watch it on replay later. And then of course, we lost by 20-15 to Indiana after we actually, get this, our quarterback went down in that game, and our backup quarterback could have won the game. He missed a simple screen pass that was wide open to the end zone. And then our field goal kicker comes out and he misses it. So on the next possession, Indiana had a game with the game tied. Indiana had an opportunity about 2 minutes or less to go downfield, and they score the winning touchdown on some kind of a pass play that was deep. First deep pass we'd given up for a touchdown this year. And they win the game, and then, of course, they give us 2 points on a safety.
Well, the other thing about Penn State going up against Iowa this week is the Penn State defense. We talk about their offense and Drew Aller and their wide receivers and all of that. But, I mean, look, what Penn State did in the offseason. They went out and hired Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator from Ohio State, who's considered the best defensive coordinator in the country. And I don't. There were other teams that put like a bidding war in for Jim Knowles, and they pay him a heck of a lot of money to be the defensive coordinator at Penn State, and has this extremely talented defense that needs to be playing a whole lot better. So maybe they start playing a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I got some questions coming in for you. One is somebody brought up the 19 people being on the injured list, but he must have missed at the beginning of the show where we talked about them getting some of them back. Somebody wanted to know how many starters were missing besides Aller. And you're probably not even, I think from the conversation, you weren't even sure, right? How many were actually starters?
No, I am. I think there was 2 starters on the offensive side. The tight end was out and 1 stud offensive lineman. And then on defense, one of their top linebackers and secondary guys were both out.
Okay. And all of them are coming back probably.
All of them should be ready to go.
Yeah. Dang, you're not giving my hopes up at all, dude. Kelvin Fisher, who was on our last episode with you, he said that, I believe he said Penn State's last win over Ohio State was 2016 on a blocked field goal. He's our statistician kind of guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Vandy Chris says, Rodger, who do you think who gets the Penn State job? And secondly, what is your feeling on the Cinetti deal? It seems like the $15 million buyout is an escape if IU doesn't provide what they promised. Yeah, for a guy getting $11 million for the next 8 years, I mean, they got a really cheap buyout.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Meanwhile, you've got Franklin walking out the door, not walking out the door, but showing the door for the buyout of $49 million. Incredible. I mean, Penn State has all the money in the world. The money, like whoever they hire next, money will not be an issue at all. The guy that I hear at the top of the list is Matt Rule from Nebraska, because he's a Penn State grad. And in his press conference, even though he said he's loving on Nebraska and wants to turn them into a powerhouse again and everything about Nebraska, but he also made it perfectly clear what a big fan he was of Penn State. And I forget what school Rule was at collegiately. It wasn't Baylor, one other school. And he worked with the Penn State director of athletics at a former school. So he has a good relationship with the current AD at Penn State. And he went to school there and is a big time Penn State fan. So Matt Rule has a pretty good resume, not the NFL, but in college football. I would think he'd be on the list. And Cignetti's the other very much talked about name around the Penn State circles. But
I don't think Cincinnati's coming now.
I don't think so. But keep an eye on Terry Smith. If he has a good rest of this season, he could very well get that job.
Yeah.
But
and I imagine he would keep most of the coaches around.
Yeah, I would think so. But he's got to have he got to get a couple signature wins. Is Iowa's signature win? It certainly will be a good win. Signature win is a win at home over Indiana and a win at Ohio State. Can they win at Ohio State? They can.
We can.
Whether they do or not, if they win at Ohio State with Terry Smith as their interim head coach, that'll go a long way for him to keep that job.
That would. Now, how far down the line is Ohio State game?
I think there's a couple. I mean, Indiana's before Ohio. I don't have the schedule in front of me. It's a few more weeks.
Okay. And besides Iowa, Indiana, and Ohio State, who else do they have left? They should have at least 6 games left.
Yeah, I mean, some of the Big Ten schools that are, they're good, but the Penn State will be favored in all those games. Although maybe not now. When you lose to UCLA and Northwestern, maybe you're not going to be favored in some of these games. But they're all games that Penn State normally wins each and every year. Like I said,
right?
Franklin, he loses 2 games every year. Michigan, Ohio State. I mean, what's the win-loss record? What's the win-loss record? Penn State against Iowa.
Gosh, I don't have that figure in front of me. I know since Franklin's been there, we rarely have beaten them. I know the last time was 2021.
I think it's probably
we rarely have beaten them. Now, when Joe Paul was still there, and the guy who was in between Joe Paul and Franklin, we were winning. We were beating Penn State quite regularly.
Okay, that was that was during that whole Jerry Sandusky scandal. And that was Bill O'Brien was coaching that team before they went out and hired James Franklin.
Yeah. Okay. Vandy Chris says, interesting that Penn State has money. I recall when Franklin took that job, it took Penn State 4 years to get his pay up to the level that he was offered by Vanderbilt, 10-year at $50 million. I didn't know Vanderbilt offered him, or was he at Vanderbilt first?
He was the yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, the landscape, the money landscape has changed. I can assure you that Penn State has all the money in the world to do whatever they need to do to bring in the next head coach. They can spend as much money as they want.
Yeah. Now, one of the sticking points with Franklin is his not winning games against ranked or higher ranked teams, right? They beat lower ranked teams. Right. Kelvin points out that Rule has never won a game against a ranked team in his career.
That's a really good point. Because I do a sports talk show here in Albany, and we, even though we're not anywhere close to Penn State, the Penn State story has been a big one. A lot of talk shows all around the country. So it came up here partly because of Greg Gattuso leaving Albany to go to Penn State, and everyone wanted to know if Greg Gattuso was good and going to keep his job. But we brought up Matt Rule, and somebody did call into the show to say, hey, if you look up the stats on Matt Rule, he's not a lot better than what James Franklin, the win-loss record against ranked opponents. So maybe they're not going to be going down that road.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they did. I mean, I'm sure Matt Rule would jump at the opportunity if offered because he said it was his dream job. But we'll see. Kelvin says the record against Iowa and Penn State is 11-11.
Oh, okay. I would have thought it would have been in favor of Penn State, but there you go, split right down the middle.
Yeah, this is since Kirk's come. I mean, Hayden Fry got a few too against him before they joined the Big Ten. Have
you looked at the Las Vegas line yet on this game?
It was Iowa -3 at the last time I looked. Now, I don't know if that's changed or not.
That would be fair. I mean, with what has been happening here lately, and your coach gone, your starting quarterback is out, and you're coming off 2 bad losses. Yeah, I can see that.
Just a couple of weeks ago, I think it was +10. Favor of Michigan. Favor of Penn State.
I can just tell you, if we got Iowa fans watching, that there wasn't a Penn State fan in the country in the preseason that didn't honestly think that this was a national championship team.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I think Iowa fans would have agreed with you too. I mean, like I said, when we had to pick our national championships, I said it's gotta be Penn State and Clemson in the championship game, and neither one of them are going to make the playoffs. I don't
No.
think at this point.
But if you look at Penn State, and you think about it. Okay, I mean they have some guys back from the injured list. They lost their quarterback, Drew Hours out, but they have everybody else. I mean, when's this team going to start playing and winning games like they're a team that can win a national championship? I don't know, but all the talent is still there. They haven't lost any.
It is. Yeah, I would look at I would compare right now the team with the new quarterback to Iowa a couple of years ago when we had Deacon Hill as our quarterback and we found a way to win 10 games without any offense, but our defense carried us. And I would think that in this game against Iowa, that defense will probably be the rule on both sides of the ball.
I could see it. And then, both teams, and I know Iowa for sure wants to be able to run the football on Saturday. Which team's offensive line can win the line of scrimmage and get the running game going?
Yeah, I would say right now Penn State's is more talented, but we'll see how things come out.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I saw the scrimmage against Albany, and that's the only time I've seen Iowa start to finish, but still have a pretty good offensive line at Iowa, and they got after it against Albany in the second half.
Okay. All righty. Let's see. Iowa is 17-0 against quarterbacks starting their first ever game.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty good stat in favor of the Hawkeyes.
Yeah. And Kelvin wants to know, are Heartland, Diaz, and Kiven all possibilities for Penn State?
They are. They absolutely. Yes.
All right. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I told you about 30 minutes, and I think you've given us a lot to chew on. And thank you for coming on here at the last minute.
Guys do a great job out there. I loved everything about Iowa. I had never been to Iowa, and that I must say, even from the broadcast booth up in the press box, that everyone waving to the Children's Hospital was very emotional for me and my broadcast partner on that Saturday. I had heard all about it. I'd never had been there in person and saw it firsthand, and to participate in that, boy, that I had to hold back some tears on that Saturday.
Yeah. Well, because I've lived in California for the last 8 years, I've never had the opportunity to be in the stadium when the wave goes on.
Unbelievable. It was incredible.
Yeah. I'm sure that when I get that opportunity, when I go back sometime, that I will also get emotional, because that's a big deal.
Yeah, well, and anyway, it is a big deal, and to see all those kids up there, waving and to know what they're going through, and our football team, Albany football team, went up there and spent some time with them the day before. They went up there and had a tour and took pictures and tried to lighten the mood in that Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
But
well, right before that wing had opened where they could watch that, I actually was up there because my mom was in the hospital in a different wing just down around the corner and down the hallway. So I went up there to check it out, and I was amazed at the view I could see inside Kinnick Stadium and watching football. And it's just like those kids have a great view.
No, absolutely. But they can be distracted for a little bit from what they've got going on in their lives to enjoy the football game and to see everybody wave at that, and that makes their day. I'm all for it. It was something. But Dean, I appreciate you having me on a couple of times during this season. You have a great show, and I know a great following, and it's a pleasure for me to be a part of it.
Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Take care, Dean.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.